Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have one of my dear friends, George Ekins. George is the principal and co-founder of American Dream Fund. They currently have $800 million of equity under management. Now, this is an interesting fund that's raised buckets of money by combining immigration and investment, known as the EB-5 immigration program in the United States. What this means is this guy knows what he's talking about when it comes to inventive ways of raising capital. George, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate you having me here. I've known you for a while, and I've heard a lot of the podcasts, and I really enjoyed listening to all the other fellows talk, and I'm happy to share my story.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you're on here, and certainly, your bright lights are added to the many that have come before you, and your very generous spirit and the amazing things you've done, man. I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, a lot of people. We're going to get to know George today, but I think a lot of people listening to this show, whether it's a fund or a founder, or they're just starting out. At one point, you weren't George Ekins that you are today. You started out, you were a guy, you were working in international business. Maybe walk us through a little bit of how it started for you, and then you can kind of bring us up to how, some of the stuff you learned along the way and how it evolved into this Goliath fund that you now run today. So where did it start for you?
So, I always knew I wanted to do international business. I didn't know what it was, but back in grade school, I had a teacher who said, and surprisingly, he was a history teacher, not an economics teacher, but he said, if you could just sell 1 tube of toothpaste to every Chinese person, you'd be a billionaire. And I really took that to heart. And I thought, wow, can I ever do that? And I thought, college, I studied international business, and I actually studied Chinese, and it's worked out well for me. So early in my career, I knew I wanted to do international business, but I really didn't know how to get into it, or really what was international business. Even though you study it, and things you learn in school are great for theory, but the practical aspect, how do you get your foot in the door? So the first job I had, it was in logistics. Worked for a company for a couple of years. Worked my way up those ranks from really the very bottom, and got myself into a sales position. I did okay, but they had like a kind of a more entrepreneurial program. They said they were going to take 3 guys or gals, and they were going to ship them off to their overseas locations and see how they did as far as business development. And I was one of the lucky few that got that position. So they sent me over to Taiwan because of my Chinese speaking ability. And I worked there for a year, worked my butt off, had a great time, and learned a little bit more about what international business was, but kind of international trade. And just so happened that I was going down in an elevator, and there was an American CEO of a company, and in that same elevator, we started chatting. And after a couple of beers, he confided into me, I confided into him about all the trials and tribulations of working overseas and all the fun stuff that we were doing. And maybe he had 1 too many cocktails, but he said, I've run into a problem. That's really what it is. He goes, well, I have this factory in China, and it's upside down. I got my team over there. They're like stealing employees, and they're starting up their own factory. And would you believe it? They actually are starting the factory right next door to mine. So they're like taking supplies over. They're just doing all types of crazy stuff. He goes, I don't even know who I can trust anymore. He goes, but George, the short time we've known each other, I think you're a guy with integrity, and I like how you think and your thought process on things, and you're really inquisitive. He said, would you join me over in China just as a kind of to get to know it, see if you'd be interested? And I was apprehensive. I was like 22, 23 at the time, and I was living life in Taiwan, doing what I was doing, making a good living. And I said, well, the offer's got to be really good to duplicate what I've got here, because I'm on this program and everything. And he goes, well, what are you making? I said X. He goes, well, here, how about X times 2? That's not bad. I said, okay. I said, well, living over there, how's living? He goes, well, I'm going to show you what living's like. And he said, well, you want free living? I said, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Do you want a driver? Yeah, that sounds good. Do you want a mate? He's like set everything up for me just to really make it beautiful situation.
Yeah.
So I went over there and had like a 3-day kind of introductory course, and it was beautiful, everything he showed me. And then I put in my notice and started working a month later. And, once he left, then all the beauty and everything kind of fades away. You're like in the thick of things, and it gets real tough. But we were successful. We did amazing things at that factory. We ended up getting that thing. It was originally running like 8 hours a day. We only had a limited number of orders, but we got that thing running 24 hours a day. We had over 1,000 people that were in the factory doing their little widgets and stuff like that. And I was really happy that after 4 years, I had accomplished everything I wanted to do. And okay, well, what's next? And my family's always been in real estate. So I said, okay, well, let's try my hand at that. So I came back to the States and went to work for a company called Marcus Millichap or IPA and put my hand in there and worked there for a number of years and worked my way up and was doing quite well and making a good living. But it was never really my heart's desire. You know, the whole dialing for dollars was not my deal. I really wanted to be on the inside of the deals and really learn about the real estate and how to operate it and how to improve it. So 2008 hit, and that was the great financial recession. That was hard on all of us.
I bet that was fun. Yeah.
Real estate brokerage because there was no transactions going on.
Oh yeah.
And I had a young family at the time, and a buddy of mine came to me. He was my fraternity brother, and he said, "Hey, I've been working for the governor of Washington State, and there is this small company that has been using this EB-5 investment immigration program." I said, "EB what?" And he had to teach me about it and everything. And he said, he's essentially been bringing money from China and all over Asia and investing into the port. And that he's purchased so many properties in the port that he's now holding the port hostage, and that he's been able to raise all the rents on all the different warehousing and stuff like that. He said his job was to learn everything about this program and how he did it. He said, I now know the program. He said, you have the contacts and China, you speak Chinese, we can put something together. And I didn't have much of a choice at the time. I'm not a huge guy on doing government programs. There's always so much red tape and so many issues with it. But I looked at it and went, well, what else am I going to do? I got nothing else because my job at brokerage was kind of dying out. So I spent the next year and just learning about it, called up old professors and said, hey, I'm looking at this. What do you think? Do you know anything about it? Do you have any contacts there? And just exercising every relationship that I had. And made a number of trips out to China, talking to my old buddies in the factories and meeting with government officials, both in China and also in the U.S., trying to put trade missions together, do everything I can to understand about how do I actually source investors for this program. And just to take you back a little bit about the program. So EB-5, investment immigration, it was a little known program. It's become a little bit more well-known now, but it was created in the 1990s. And it's a program that allows high net worth investors an opportunity to earn themselves and their family a green card through investment. Now, the investment needs to create 10 new long-term jobs for U.S. people. U.S. person is a citizen or a green card holder. So the great thing about the program is that it's bringing in substantial capital to the United States that is going to create the new tax bases, but it's also creating a lot of jobs for people, for U.S. people. So it's huge. It's just all the benefits it does for the U.S.
Man, I love it. And my understanding is when you guys started, you were like one of maybe 19 or 20 people in the entire country that were doing it.
There was no pathway for us. That's really what it was. Is that at the time, even though it was created in 1990, it had gone through certain iterations and problems, but it fell out of fanfare. And at the time that we started getting into it in 2008, there was less than 20 companies that were involved in it. And there was probably two big ones. But still, they only did maybe $20, $30 million a year. It wasn't much. Yeah. So we looked at it and said, okay, how do we get involved in it? And just started working really hard and spent a lot of time at it. And started off slow. It took a year to really get our feet wet and get our first deals just to come out to the market. Right. But once we did, and that first deal was the hardest deal I've ever done. Hardest deal to raise the capital, hardest deal to put together, hardest deal to hold it together. Yeah. Because the way the capital comes in, it's unique. And that you have all these hurdles that you got to deal with. You have investors that are foreign and they're offshore, and they have to satisfy their immigration requirements. It takes a while to put $500,000 together for them to be able to send it over to the U.S. and to put it into play. And essentially what we do is we aggregate multiple investors together in order to make one investment, substantial investment into a ground up development project.
Perfect. And are the investments that you do, for those people that are listening, is that limited to real estate, or is it any kind of asset class?
So it really can be any type of asset class, as long as it satisfies the main requirements with EB-5 law or legislation. And the first requirement is that the capital that's coming in, you have to prove the source of that capital has to be clean. And you have to show tax records and all the background on how you made that first dollar. And you have to show the path of the funds coming all the way to the United States. And there's a lot of challenges in certain countries, whether it be China, Vietnam, India. They have currency controls, so they can only export or convert so much currency to U.S. dollars every year. But you have to show that whole path, that whole source, and then they have to go through background checks. So it's challenging from that perspective. But as far as the investment that you're making, it can be in almost anything as long as the investor satisfies their requirements, and that it's going to create the 10 new long-term jobs and be invested into, it can be invested anywhere in the United States, but you get a benefit, or the investor gets a benefit if it's invested in a targeted employment area or a rural area. And a targeted employment area or a TEA, is any area that has significantly high unemployment. So 150% of the national average. Then the investment, previously it used to be $1 million, now it's 1.2, but instead of being $1 million, it now got slashed down to $500,000, because the government was trying to incentivize people to make investments into that area or those areas, so that they could help boost up those areas. And by far and large, all of our investments, we have a little over more than $500 million, close to $1 billion of capital that's been invested, and it's all been invested in those targeted employment areas. So we've been really happy with that. We're really satisfied with the contribution that we've given through this program that's helped the United States, that's helped these investors to realize their American dream. It's just very satisfying and makes your heart feel good and helps you sleep at night that you've done something good.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, George. And you mentioned that there are some background checks as well. Is that like CIA, or what are we talking here? Like how extensive are those background checks?
Any agency under the Department of Defense. So you got CIA, FBI.
Good.
But every agency that's doing their own individual background checks. Now, the governing body or agency is United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. Previously, it was called the INS. That is the agency that regulates and that processes or adjudicates all the petitions. But they are working together with all the other Department of Defense agencies to vet every individual that's coming through. And it's not a fast, like rubber stamp vet. They really do due diligence. We've had investors, their background, they've actually flown out there and double checked on the background of these investors to make sure they're who they are and that they've made that capital the way that they say that they're making it. And it's not just mysteriously showing up in a brown baggie.
Wow. So I hope investors or founders who are listening to this can understand and say, look, there's a fund out there. If you're international, there's a fund out there that can invest in the businesses that's creating at least 10 jobs in the United States. So U.S. founders especially would be able to benefit from some of the capital that you're providing, as long as they help you to meet that criteria for the international capital. Is that right? Yeah,
absolutely. We're not the only player out there. Now, originally one of 20 back in 2008. Now, 2022, there's probably close to 1,000 different companies that are doing it. The program has gone through another iteration. There's been new legislation that's been introduced, and there's a number of people who've gotten out of it because as government goes, there's more and more red tape. There's more challenges to the program. So it's not for the faint of heart, but it does a lot of good for the United States, and you can raise a significant amount of capital. And what's great about it, what I truly like, is it's unique. It's unique capital, and it's something different than what most other fund managers are doing. And that you're able to really be you've got a smaller number of people that are doing it, and if you become an expert in it, you can really go out and help not just the United States, but help projects that wouldn't otherwise be able to get funding. And we've done private public partnerships, ground development of hotels, resorts, casinos, apartment buildings. We've done a number of assisted living facilities. But there's also like a number of other people that are doing schools, like charter schools. So the capital can go in almost anything. It can go into venture capital as well. It's much more challenging just from a marketing standpoint. In that what we've learned from our investors is that they want not so much a return on their investment. Usually the return on investment is pretty low, because the main thing that their goal is to get the green card from this. But what they want is a return of their investment. So they want some type of collateral, some type of safety of their investment. This is not a crapshoot for them. They're not rolling the dice. They really they need to get this immigration. And a lot of it's because they're changing their whole family. They're moving their whole family to the United States to start that American dream.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely perfect, man. So different asset classes are certainly open for investments. And then you mentioned the EB-5 program. There's a couple of criteria. I wonder if you can just summarize that. You mentioned there's certain areas, and what are some of those things that these investments need to be in order to get capital from you?
And this is where it gets a little bit trickier. We welcome people to come to our website and to learn more about it. We have FAQs on it that goes through the whole process. But it comes down to a couple of major things. The number one, the project needs to be located within a regional center. And a regional center is a predetermined geographic area that has already been petitioned to USCIS for a specific company. So we own 5 or 6 different regional centers throughout the United States. So there's areas that we've already been like pre-classified that we can do business in those areas. The second is that you get the investor gets an economic benefit through a lower threshold of investment if they invest in a targeted employment area, so a more depressed or higher unemployment area, or a rural area. And that's to incentivize more investment to go into those areas. And the third key component is job creation. You need to evidence that through that investor's investment, and you need to show the nexus from the investor's investment to job creation. How did that capital create those jobs? And each investor, so each, whether it be $500,000 or $1 million, needs to be able to show that they've created 10 new long-term jobs. Now, the benefit for us is that because we own and operate regional centers, is that the way that we account for jobs is through an economic methodology. And these are all approved by the government. The government uses them. There's very common ones are like RIMS 2, IMPLAN, and an economist puts it together. And essentially what it says is that through your investment of the EB-5 investment, as well as other investment that's coming into it, how many jobs would be created through the input of your capital through construction costs and the output through revenues? Is that going to create the total number of jobs in all these different industries? And you're creating jobs both directly, people that are, say you're doing a hotel, which is very common. You have people that are working in construction, you get credit for those jobs. People that are working at the operations, you get credit for those jobs. Those are called direct jobs.
Okay.
The other you get benefit for, which is quite significant, is indirect jobs. So a hotel that's farming out there, whether it be dinner services or laundry services, is a big one.
Landscaping.
Creating indirect employment. And you also get the benefit of induced job creation. And an induced job creation is because you built this new $500 million hotel, that now it's increasing the tax basis in that whole area. But all those people, all the indirect and direct people that are working there are now going out and shopping in those areas. So the grocery store is going to be making more money. So the grocery store needs to create more jobs. So you're getting benefit of that induced employment as well.
Man, that is incredible. So, and there's many other immigration programs that are out there. There's investor visas, there's L1. I mean, I'm by no means an expert. You roll in these circles, you hear about them, but an L1 visa for an executive or investor visa. This is kind of an investor visa a little bit as well, or starting a small business, I should say. But what are some of the great things that investors like about the EB-5 program that you found?
The biggest benefit is that historically it's been the fastest visa category that you can get to go from nothing to getting a green card, from being a foreign national to getting a green card.
Sure.
There's because of the challenges with the program, it's now taking a little bit longer for people to go through that process. But still today, it's likely the fastest process. It's definitely much faster than family-based, depending on the country.
Yeah.
And it comes with less complications. So you have two different types of products. You have EB-5, that is just a one-off, whereby that investor can come in and create their own business. But they have to show how many direct jobs they're going to be creating. And they have to, with that $500,000 or $1 million, they have to be creating those 10 new jobs. And they have to be almost in perpetuity. You have to show for like 5-7 years that those jobs are still in existence, I-9s and W-2s. With the EB-5 Regional Center program that we do, for the investor, it's a passive investment. They invest into a security where they become a limited partner, and we are the general partner, and we do everything for them. So they get the immigration benefit, they get return of investment and return on investment through that vehicle, but they're not having to deal with the day-to-day ins and outs of running and operating a hotel or other type of business, which most of these people, they have other jobs. They have other businesses they're trying to run. Trying to run another company just for immigration would be just too challenging. It's not likely. Most people don't do it. So about 98 to 99% of the EB-5 program is through the Regional Center program because it's by and large a passive investment for them.
And do you do this just for yourself, or can someone hire you to fundraise for their deal? Like they can hire you to say, I need to raise $100 million or 10 million, whatever. Can you guys go and fundraise for me? Since you're already a regional office, can we use you as a capital raiser?
Very good question. In fact, we don't do it for our own account, but we have, regardless of us having development experience or real estate experience, we really look at being a shepherd of that capital to ensure that it's being placed into the right projects. So we don't invest into our own projects. We invest exclusively into other projects. So generally, we're doing a JV with another company that is a development company where we're providing either the equity capital or some type of mezz financing for it, or a blend of the two. And that developer is able to do what their expertise is and develop. And we do what ours is that we bring additional capital to fill that capital stack.
Awesome. Yeah, that's incredible.
Generally, a developer is going to get a friendlier capital because that capital needs to meet those immigration requirements. So it's sticky capital. Meaning it's going to stick in there through thick and thin. And it's looking for a return of investment, and on investment. But the on investment is not as critical as making sure that the project gets completed and that it satisfies all the immigration requirements.
Yeah, I love that. So, what are some of the, since you're that, like I always joke, so the dark arts of capital raising, like I do, but what are some of the takeaways? I mean, people coming on this show making billions are like, teach me how, brother. So, what are some of those takeaways, let's say in raising capital, what are some advice you can give to our listeners around the world?
Honestly, I've been involved in this business now for more than a decade. And it's really because of perseverance, and that I had a need. I obviously needed a job, but I had a desire. I wanted to go out there, and I really wanted to become the best at what I was going to be able to do, and learn and access all the resources that I possibly could. I had and I still have a lot of energy for what I'm doing, and I love what I'm doing. I love the people that we work with. I've got a good team that's around us. I've got good staff. We generally try to run a more lean company, so we outsource a lot of stuff. We have a great counsel. They don't work for us directly, but we work with the best out there. We have economists. We have appraisers. We have all these analysts that work for us, but they're all like 1099 and independent. But so really working with the good people, surrounding yourself with those, the other is I like to make friends with everybody. And
I know you do.
Yeah, I like people. So
Yeah.
what I found that's unique, I think, and other people have commented on it, is that while I'm very friendly, obviously, with anybody that's working with us and that's partnering with us, and we're serious when we come down to business, but we're very friendly in that process. But I'm friends with all my competitors. I love them. And I've learned a lot from them. I learned a lot not to do, and also what I can benchmark off of what they're doing to make myself better. And really, if you utilize that and you become friends with your competitors, they'll make you better, and you'll make them better. And it's the ones that want to be your friends that are going to be the best. And I still, even like today, I was having a conversation with a decade ago. He and I were competing against a deal. He stole the deal from me.
Oh.
Yeah, great friends afterwards, and we still go back and forth, and we do business together today.
Yeah.
You just don't know where those opportunities are going to turn out. So I'm always looking for good opportunities, whether it's inside my core competency or outside, to see how I might be able to utilize it. And our company is branched out and started doing private equity and other things as well, because we've seen that need. Yeah. And I've seen our competitors do it, and I've been able to benchmark of what they're doing and learn from that. Nice. But it's been really good. Try to surround yourself with the best people. Partnerships are always have its challenges. It's a marriage. Marriages, they're tough. But you got to be able to figure it out. And if you are able to figure it out and be able to make things work, it becomes a great opportunity for you both to grow and to really flourish, which I think our partners have.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that, man. So, leaning into your competitor, sometimes I jokingly call it co-opetition. So it's like, I like those, man. It's like, I'm going to get you. Like, it's not hostile. You're all in the business. You know what it is. You're here to win, and so are they. And sometimes a healthy co-opetition can actually make you both perform. It can unlock the animal spirits that, empires are built on. There's a little dramatic spin, but co-opetition, having the right team as well as the right competitors. We know a few mutual friends who played in the NFL, man, and they would agree. They're like, like me against Little League, it's not anything. But if I'm someone's coming at me as hard as I can, as I'm coming at them, and it is a worthy competitor, it makes you play at the top level, and that's glorious to see. So
the great thing is that where I've seen that benefit is that the folks that we have that friendly cooperation as competitors, when we come to the table for that investor, there's only two of us there. Everybody else is out.
They're like, this is not competition.
They can see right through it, and they go, okay, I see what you're doing, and I see what they're doing, and the rest of the pack is way back here. So then you're just fighting between the two of you, and that's good. You've eliminated everybody else. You eliminate 10 other people from the room. That's great.
That's incredible.
As I got into this business, man, it was really tough. I had no idea what I was doing. I just did it.
Good.
And I corrected my course along the way. Like I went in there and I was thinking it was going to be like this. Oh no, I did dog leg to the right and started doing something else. And it just little different iterations change along the way. Yeah. But until you just say, do it, you're going to sit there and find all these excuses for not doing it. And you just got to dive in head first. And as long as you're committed and you have that perseverance and energy, you'll succeed.
Yeah, you'll crush it. You're a perfect example. Yeah, you're a perfect. Just that last bit you were saying. You're a perfect example of day one beats one day, right? Like day one is just get started, man. Don't be like, well, one day when I'm this, or one day when the world is perfect, then I'll start my business. Then I'll make that investment. Then I'll ask this person to marry me or no longer marry me. Whatever that is, just start, right? Yeah. Just start. Man, that's incredible. And dude, I'm super into this story. So I think you and I are going to have many more conversations if it's up to me. I know you're a busy guy.
Well, I love this. I'm sharing this story and there's a lot of other programs out there that are similar to or different than EB5. As I talk to the younger generation and even my kids and stuff like that, they ask me, "Okay, Dad," or my friends' kids across the street.
Yeah.
Like, you've been successful. What's your secret? I'm like, no real secret.
Yeah.
I worked hard. And I was lucky, but I think I created my own luck. I put myself in the room, number one, and then I tried to surround myself with good other people, and I just persevered, and everything else just kind of happens along the way. So just get in there and do it. And
awesome.
I think the one thing that I really enjoyed about my particular business line, though, is it's unique, and that there's a lot of ways to make money, and you can be competing against 1,000 people, 100,000 people, 1,000,000 people. If you can find something you're only competing against 20 others, okay, you got a competitive edge, and then you can build your company on that. So if you're able to find something that's unique, that gives you a big lift.
Yeah, brother, preach to the choir, man. I absolutely love that. And that's solid advice, whether you're a funder or a founder. You found a way to, back when you started, you were literally one of only 20 people in the entire country of the United States. You're one of 20. That's a big country. So you were definitely unique. And you figured out a way to not only raise capital, but do it in an inventive way where, family offices, all these people get pitched for, all kinds of things. But you say, well, no, there's a different angle on that. And so for our listeners around the world, it's saying like, you don't actually have to reinvent something completely out there. Sometimes products come along that are evolutionary. They're just the natural evolution of the existing what we got. And sometimes they're revolutionary. And learning the difference between an evolutionary product and a revolutionary product can make the difference between actually commercializing something or not, actually having traction or not, right? So you provided, and I would argue that majority of projects that hit are actually evolutionary more than they are revolutionary, right? And so some revolutionary things happen, and they're absolutely. I'm a VC man, so I'm on the edge of my seat on like new energy stuff that's happening and fission, and fusion. Oh my gosh, yeah. So there are some revolutionary stuff, and they get all the press. But people who start their businesses, often they're just saying like, "What if I just turn this dial a little bit to the right or the left?" Just this natural evolution of what's available now, and it unlocks a massive amount of value. And you've certainly done that.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap things up, is there anything else you would like to just include, or any takeaways that you feel like our listeners around the world would want to know?
So we're in the marketplace. We're always doing exciting new stuff. So if anybody has interest in learning more about our company, about us, go to our website. I'm happy to spend a couple of minutes and chat with people, and you'll learn a lot about this program and the types of things that we're looking at doing through our FAQs and stuff like that. Yeah. Honestly, Ryan, this has been exciting for me. I've really enjoyed the time with you. Yeah. You've done some great things in business, and this is how we kind of found each other, and I've always been really impressed with it. But I think what's key here is your love and interest of the people that's authentically drawn, unique individuals to you. Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing, because you're helping many of the young aspiring fund managers out there, and even those of us kind of older dogs here that are around the block get better. So I really enjoy listening to the podcast. I enjoy our friendship and enjoy seeing everything that you're doing. So keep it up. You
betcha, man. I appreciate you. You're very kind. And likewise to you. I mean, you're certainly an inspiration to me. All the stuff you've been able to put together. And again, none of the stuff we're saying, I mean, we got to do the legal stuff, but none of the stuff we're saying is an open solicitation for investment. We're just two guys that like finance, and we're just talking about what we're into. So, whether you do or don't do something, don't let this show be any bearing on that. But that being said, are you guys looking at still new projects that are out there in a non-solicitous way? But are you? Yeah.
So everything we say here is for educational purposes only.
Yeah. But, we're just disclaiming the heck out of this.
But no, we're absolutely we're looking for new projects all around the United States. We're looking for things that are specifically like a new solar farm, stuff like that would be really exciting. Something that's in a rural area, something that's in a targeted employment area. Those things are highly marketable to our investors, our investor base, and it's something that really helps the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
One of the things I didn't mention, but through all the different projects that we've done, we've created over 20,000 new U.S. jobs for American people.
Now that's a patriot.
Yeah, I that's one thing I told you I'm really happy with what I do. I'm really proud of it, and that's one of the things that really makes me proud is what we've done and what our company's done, and it's all been through this foreign investment that's allowed that to happen. And we started it right during the great financial crisis.
Yeah, and let me connect those dots for our audience around the world. Is saying when George started, he even said he's like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like compared to what I know now, I didn't know any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And now look at he decided that today's the day. Today is day one, and he started it. And now he's looking back, and because he made that decision, 20,000 jobs were created from that one decision. So this isn't, yes, we talk about making billions, and sure, like we don't neglect the income that you made, but it's the impact. Yeah. Every single guest, and you're one of them, every single guest on this show says it was the impact that kept me going, not the income. We don't neglect the income, but we're certainly not driven by it. We enjoy it, but what drives us, what gets us up early and keeps us up late is the impact we're making, the jobs we're creating, investing in the country that we love. And so I won't do it on the show, but classic head nod and slow clap to you, brother. That is absolutely incredible. So as we conclude on the show, I hope you enjoyed our time with George and I. Learn the difference between being revolutionary and evolutionary, and pick those things. Also, decide on day one rather than one day. Don't be a entrepreneur. Be like George. Just get started, man. You don't have to know everything or wait for perfect scenarios, right? Done is better than perfect. So just start. Don't be obsessed with perfect or one day. Just get it going. You do these things and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.